Alright, hi guys. So I'm absolutely exhausted, so I'm not going to bother editing this video. I thought I'd just have a ramble on about, all the stuff that seemed to have gone wrong the last few days with regards to the Airbnb situation that I find myself in. So my next competition is in Scotland in just over a week, and a few days ago I got a message from the Airbnb host that we'd booked. We booked like 2 months ago. Obviously trying to do it as cheaply as possible because, going to Scotland is going to be expensive, and like staying for 5 days or whatever, it's going to be expensive. But we wanted to do it, and we wanted to do it as cheaply as possible. We found a place, just a room in someone else's place, that was like 225 quid or something for the 5 nights, for two people, so like 110-ish each, which is pretty good. And so we booked that. We booked it in like April, solid 2 months ago. And it was all, going well, sounding good, and everything like that. And then a couple of days ago, I got a message from the host on Airbnb to say they'd had like a leak or something like that in the property, like a small flood, and they were unsure that they'd be able to host anyone for the foreseeable future, and they'd have to cancel a few of the bookings. So obviously that threw a wrench in the works. This being like literally, like I said, a week and a half before we were due to go up there, and I didn't really know what to do. I figured it was probably not a good idea for us to cancel the booking, and because it wasn't our fault, it was the host's responsibility to do it. And I'd never been in a situation like this before, so I didn't really know what to do anyway. So I just kind of, said okay, and just kind of waited for stuff to happen. And I did check that the place we'd booked, it had said initially that it was non-refundable. So I realised it was a very good job I didn't cancel it, because if I cancelled, I would not have been able to get the money back. And I did also look through the Airbnb terms, and it did say that if the host cancels, unexpectedly due to whatever circumstances, then you could get a refund, or you could get like booking credit and get it rebooked. So I was like, okay, that's not the worst. So I thought, okay, well, let's have a look around for some places. Before I even knew that, like, for definite that the host had cancelled, I thought, well, let's look for somewhere else. Found somewhere that we'd looked at before that was pretty much the same price, slightly further away. And so I, messaged the host there. That was on the same day. I think it was Monday. But yeah, they never got back. So I was like, okay, great. And I guess if the host doesn't automatically respond in like a day or something, then Airbnb just like cancels it. So yeah, so that one didn't go anywhere. So that was a bit annoying. Then after a couple of days, finally, like going back and forth for a bit, finally the host of the original place actually cancelled. And so I think what they did initially was they said the money that we'd spent on the first one would go into booking credit, so we could look for somewhere else to book and not have to get the refund and then pay again separately, which was thought would be convenient. As we started looking for more places again, and the option under the message that we got from like the automated Airbnb message, because the host cancelled, it gave us a rebook option. Like there was a button that said rebook now, and so I clicked on that and like scrolled through a few places. Obviously, like not wanting something considerably more expensive, because we'd still have to pay the difference. We got like 20 quid booking credit, but that's like nothing basically. So I didn't want to pay too much more than we had already. And like I said, the other place that we'd been looking at that didn't get back to us at all. So I didn't know what else there would be. Obviously, such short notice, probably going to be quite expensive. It was already quite expensive when we looked, to be fair. I was surprised we found somewhere as cheap as we did, as is. So I looked at a few other places that got suggested by this, rebook system, like places that it just automatically suggested. And I looked at a few of them, and one of them looked pretty decent. It was a little bit more expensive, but it was about as cheap as we could get. So I messaged the place, and the guy came back and just said that the property was unavailable on those dates, even though when I clicked on the rebook and it had exactly the dates that we needed, obviously the same ones we'd booked before, it had come up. So I don't know why it suggested it if it wasn't available on the dates. So that was quite annoying. And then a fourth place I looked at as well, instead of having a request a reservation button, that just had a, like, I think it was called check availability button. So I clicked on that, and there was one day out of the 5 that we needed that it wasn't available for. and I think it was like the Tuesday or something really random. So that was annoying as well. And kept looking on Airbnb, and there just was nothing else. It's absolutely nothing. So I kind of had to I had to like rebook somewhere like not on Airbnb. So I was like, okay, great. So I can't use the booking credit. So then I had to talk to like an automatic like robot assistant or whatever, and then to briefly talk to who I presume was actually a real person as well about trying to get the refund back as actual money rather than just booking credit, because I didn't want to book anywhere else on Airbnb. That eventually happened. I think they tried to call me at one point and I didn't pick up because I don't take phone calls unless it's from people I actually know. So yeah, that was a bit of a hassle. And eventually, like, we looked around, couldn't find anything on like Booking.com or anything like that. The literal next best option was a Premier Inn, so a hotel chain that was not in Glasgow at all. It was like just outside of the city centre in a completely separate place, and that was about 50% more expensive in total than the one we'd already paid for, and that was literally as cheap as anywhere we could find. So yeah, I had to fork over an additional 75 quid to stay somewhere that's much further away, much less convenient, but at least it's a hotel, and I know that like nothing can go wrong with that. I know what to expect. Premier Inn's pretty good as a general rule. I've stayed in loads before, so it definitely could be worse. I'm just glad to have found somewhere, but certainly very, very annoyed to have had to have paid so much more, and for so many of the options that were apparently available to us on Airbnb just weren't available. Either like the host didn't get back, or they apparently weren't available on the dates that they said they would be available. Yeah, it's really, really frustrating. And just as a whole, the whole like last 3 days has been so stressful because I've been nervous, on edge the whole time, not knowing if I was going to get my money back, or not knowing if we'd be able to rebook a place to stay in time, or whether we'd have to spend a fortune more. And I can't really afford to be like having things like this happen, even though like obviously it wasn't our fault at all. It was just completely outside of our control. It was just really, really, really annoying. So yeah, I'm extremely tired and fed up with just everything. So yeah, I'm gonna go to bed very soon after this. I know I say that a lot and it doesn't always happen, but I am going to on this occasion because I'm absolutely exhausted. Yeah, I don't know. I've got other stuff to book as well. I've got to book stuff for UKC, but I'm kind of leaving that, putting that on the back burner at the minute because I'm a bit fed up with all the stuff that's been going on. But at least it's resolved and we've got somewhere to stay. So it's definitely not gone quite as bad as it could. It'll work out in the end, and I'm sure the comp will be good fun. But yeah, it's just a bit of stress I didn't need over the last few days. Yeah, I thought I'd have a rant about it, and yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.